The Xbox brand is on fire, and that includes Phil Spencer's character in Fallout 76. Maybe funny timing, but somebody dropped a nuke on his campsite in-game. The individual that was responsible owned up to it on Twitter, showing off a previous meet with Spencer in-game, and of course the fallout from the nuke on Spencer's campsite. If you weren't aware, Spencer is in fact a huge gamer, although I think right now the Xbox community is coming to terms with the fact that he's also a big suit executive. Towards the end of last month, it was announced by Blizzard that Blizzcon 2024 would not be happening. The reason why? Well, none was given. My assumption is that Blizzard just doesn't have anything to reveal, especially as the one interesting new survival IP that they were working on was canned earlier this year, along with quite a few dev jobs. Today we have a lot of news to discuss and break down outside of Xbox. It's been a busy past few weeks, especially in regards to the blue console maker that seems to be trying to upstage the green one in terms of pissing off the gaming community. Recent updates surrounding the PC version of Ghost of Tsushima have made quite clear that Sony is only half listening. But before we dive into all of that, the gaming landscape is ever changing, and with that we continue to see new grand experiences that delight audiences. One of those is AFK Journey, today's sponsor. The free-to-play ethereal fantasy RPG available on iOS, the Google Play Store, and on PC is getting bigger and better with regular seasonal updates. It already boasts a unique art style, complex gameplay systems, and an added layer with PC-compatible side-scrolling elements. You embark on a quest as Merlin, gathering heroes across 6 factions while diving into an unexplored world of Asperia full of hidden mystery waiting to be unlocked. From honor duels to Dream Realm to AFK stages, there's tons of different strategic battle modes to keep you captivated. Even more so now with its latest update, Song of Strife. AFK Journey introduces you to a new part of Asperia, featuring a new storyline with the Warsong Festival, new Muller heroes with the lively Alsa and the strong warrior Soren, new PvP and PvE content, a new leveling system, new map locations, and bosses to take on. The Sands and Strife await as this new update is now live and ready for you to experience. Download AFK Journey today by following my link down the description below and use my code AFKJ New Season to get 500 diamonds and 50,000 coins. Thank you again to Farlight Games for sponsoring this video. You know, I believe it was about a year or two ago that a popular YouTuber, Dunkey, announced that he was getting into the indie publishing side of gaming. He was going to be putting his money, time, and resources to help indie developers make great games, and he was met to a lot of mockery and laughs by people, but it looks like he kind of has the last laugh because his first release, Animal Well, has been a giant success story so far, being met to critical acclaim from users and critics. We have also seen here on Steam 1,500 reviews so far, 97%, and it looks like this is a game that could be showered in awards later on in the year. Just awesome to see a success story like this. A couple of years ago, Star Wars KOTOR the Remake was one of my most anticipated games, but what has followed is constant updates that made clear that this project may just never see the light of day. It has switched development studios, and there's been updates making it up to be that the progress that has been made has not been substantial. Now we do have this recent update which kind of makes me feel like, again, maybe we won't see this, or maybe if it does release it ends up being of poor quality. Sony has lost interest in PS5 Star Wars KOTOR Remake, this according to a report coming from Jeff Grubb saying, "My understanding is that Sony wants nothing to do with it anymore, which is why I thought it was dead." And it is worth mentioning that Saber Interactive was recently sold for about $250 million, but the Embracer Group, which owned the company, said that as part of the sale agreement, it was holding on to a previously announced AAA game based on a major license, and this of course was the KOTOR Remake. So maybe we do see this, hopefully it does end up being something that is worthwhile, but right now I'm extremely skeptical. Electronic Arts just the other day announced that they were thinking about thoughtful in-game advertising, something that was met to uproar from the gaming community, and they followed that up with some AI remarks saying that their EA studios have a hunger to start using generative AI as quickly as possible, says Android Wilson. He said, "We've done analysis across all of our development processes, and right now, based on our early assessment, we believe that more than 50% of our development processes will be positively impacted by the advances in generative AI, and we've got teams across the company really looking to execute against that." And I would tell you, there's a real hunger amongst our developers to get to this as quickly as possible, because again, the holy grail for us is build bigger, more innovative, more creative, more fun games more quickly so that we can entertain more people around the world on a global basis at a faster rate. And I don't think that anybody doubts that AI is going to maybe help game development in certain regards, but there is also the fact that publishers want to push into AI so they can cut down on costs that are more more associated with developers. And we actually saw a former BioWare developer, David Gator, coming out saying, in case it's unclear, the hunger referred to here is the allure of a spreadsheet where the labor costs suddenly show as a teeny tiny bar compared to the other bars, and a bunch of executives around a table nod and repeat ROI and good, yes, good over and over again. Cyberpunk 2077 was a major comeback for CD Projekt Red, and I guess the company's executives are feeling a little great about themselves, so much so that they took a shot recently at Ubisoft with them selling Skull and Bones as a quadruple A game. If you don't know, that was Ubisoft's excuse for selling the game for $70, something that made no sense, and they pretty much CD Projekt Red said that their next game, in that sense, would be a quintuple A game, which these A's, I'm just done with them at this point. They mean nothing, and I think Ubisoft proved that. But with CD Projekt Red, them, taking this dig, a lot of people saying that they probably should not be talking, because a lot of people still have torn feelings about CDPR with how they launched Cyberpunk 2077. Something I've said numerous times over the years, people are not going to get over that, and they will always remember. Speaking of Ubisoft, one of the big disappointments in recent years was Watch Dogs Legion, and it looks like that game's, let's just say, failure has done permanent damage to the franchise, so much so that it looks like the franchise is permanently dead. This according to an insider who said that the franchise is dead and buried, which is disappointing because I do think that Watch Dogs 1 had something that was pretty unique, especially the hacking and stuff. Watch Dogs 2, I think, improved on a lot of it. The story and characters has always been a problem for Ubisoft, but Legion was just a horrendous experience, and it's just sad to see that this franchise is at least done for the time being. Now, Ubisoft sparked a lot of outrage recently with another game, this being Star Wars Outlaw, as you can see with their story trailer that debuted last month. 175,000 dislikes, and yeah, a lot of people extremely upset with the crew situation. If you don't know what I'm referring to, they delisted the game. That game is no longer playable. And then just a couple of weeks later, a Ubisoft executive followed up this delisting by saying that gamers should get comfortable with not owning their games anymore. A lot of people now understanding that Ubisoft doesn't care about game preservation at all, but there's also the fact that Star Wars Outlaw is your typical Ubisoft experience in which, yeah, $110 and $130 editions prompt a collective sigh from potential players as, yeah, season passes, missions, and stuff are all being hidden behind that, and of course it has that stupid exclusive 3 days early access. It's all the stuff that I think everybody's just getting so tired of with the AAA games industry, and again, this is the mission I was referring to. Ubisoft is pretty much everything that's wrong with single-player AAA gaming at this point because of their over-monetization and really the bullshit they pull with these games. Because earlier on, I know I talked about Electronic Arts exploring AI and its uses in games. Ubisoft has already gone down that road, saying that they're going to be using that stuff for NPCs, so yeah, games from them feeling more soulless, kind of just not a surprising thing, I suppose. One of the big stories that we talked about, I believe it was last week, was Escape of Tarkov selling off a $250 unheard edition, which is just a deluxe edition for a game that technically hasn't officially launched. Escape from Tarkov also went back on a promise that they made with a previous edition of the game in which players would get all DLC. They said that a PvE feature was not actually DLC. That doesn't count as DLC because, as we've learned in the past, publishers make up what they feel should be DLC. They just make up their own terminology at this point. But we did see the Escape from Tarkov studio boss says he did not foresee players would get mad about charging extra for PvE, which is certainly something. Last we left off with the situation, the Tarkov devs had moved the needle a little bit. Originally, the PvE mode was exclusive to the $250 new Unheard edition. Previous owners of the EOD edition, an edition of the game that has existed for years, or it did exist for years, were promised all future DLC content, but they were out of luck. Because the Tarkov boss believes that a big new game mode is not considered DLC. Obviously, this was met to a bunch of uproar, outrage, and legal threats, and they gave in a little bit by giving 6 months of temporary access to EOD owners, and obviously players downvoted that immediately, saying that they were promised what they were promised. But we did see an apology tour of sorts coming from the Tarkov devs. It began with this update 13 days ago, in which they said that the PvE game mode is still not DLC. DLC, in our understanding, is the major additions to the game, including various functionality and content that are released after the official release of the game as a themed DLC pack. That's not what DLC is, exactly what PvE is. And then they continued on with some other stuff, talking about that they were disappointed that people were dissatisfied with stuff, and they stressed that the specific functionality of the PvE mode is necessarily located entirely on a separate network infrastructure, and they pretty much said giving access to all previous players that were promised all DLC content would be an issue for them because of the infrastructure that they have right now. And then this led to more outrage, and then another response the day after, in which they said they were sorry that fans in the gaming community in general are experiencing these feelings, which is a hell of an apology. And then they did say that PvE access, we decided to just open it up for all EOD owners, which again was a previous edition of the game, but we will do it in waves. And then they said that they were going to continue forward with their $250 pay-to-win edition. And then this followed another response. This is where it does end, fortunately, in which they said that previous owners of the EOD edition would be getting access to the PvE mode with persistent progression. And they also announced a ton of other pay-to-win content for the previous edition, along with some fixes, I guess changes with the new $250 edition. It really is mind-blowing how badly this has gone and how these developers did not plan any of this out. And of course, the mockery from the gaming industry has come in waves from various studios, some that are direct competitors, but we also saw development teams such as DayZ mocking them, saying update $250 DayZ starter loot bundle is now sold out, thank you, limited stock as we can't give it to everyone, it's too expensive and technically hard. The true believers will get to enjoy the bundle for 6 months because that was a stipulation with the previous edition of the game. They really couldn't walk everything back, those Tarkov devs. But we also did see the Helldivers 2 devs mocking them, saying be sure to check out the deals in the acquisition center today. With prices so low, they're practically unheard of. True believers can grab the CM21 Trench Paramedic for only $250 SC, featuring increased pocket size and extra stims, all of the pay-to-win nonsense associated with the unheard edition. And the true believers part is something that the Tarkov devs used, again, as an excuse for people to support them, I suppose. That specific remark came from the company's boss in a leaked interview when he was confronted about players being upset with the Tarkov devs going back on their promises. Legally binding ones, I might add. But speaking of Helldivers 2, this is a game that has been in the news for various reasons. One of them being this, a massive review bombing that was deserved. It all came because of, well, Arrowhead actually even supported this review bombing at some point. It was because of this. They announced a account linking update. This has now been removed, but this is what it said originally. Account linking plays a critical role in protecting our players and upholding the values of safety and security provided on PlayStation and PlayStation Studio games. This is our main way to protect players from griefing, and by enabling the banning of players, blah 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 blah. And then they said as of May 6, all new Helldivers 2 players on Steam were going to be required to connect their Steam accounts to a PlayStation Network account. And as Arrowhead later clarified, this was a requirement that was supposed to be in enforcement at launch, but due to issues that happened at launch, it was temporarily removed. Until obviously suddenly just a couple of days ago, Sony said this needs to be enforced now. The problem with this is that PSN is only available in about 69 countries, and there's 177 countries in the world. This presents a big problem for all of the other countries that don't have access to this. And the solution that PlayStation has given, well, they really haven't. But this was met to uproar from the gaming community, so much so we had community managers at Arrowhead really going after the community. This was one community manager saying it's not like this is the first or even the 14th mainstream game to require a third-party account. But the problem is doing this months after release, and many people didn't even know about this. That's the issue. And then there's also the fact that this community manager continued going off. He mocked people, saying, I thought you were refunding and leaving. There are some rumors that this specific community manager has been fired. I'm not too sure, but the way that they handled this, very unprofessional and really amateurish. Ultimately, you can tell that these developers definitely were not prepared for this situation, and everything that has come from Arrowhead indicates that this was kind of like, yeah, you guys got to make sure that this is in the game now. And they were hamstrung because PlayStation, they're the publisher of Helldivers 2. they have to give in to what they want. Now, we did see other people defending Helldivers 2, the development team. This individual gaming figure saying that the dev team has been amazing with the community for months. This is how y'all treat them over a PSN account. Oh, gamers, Helldivers 2 is an amazing game. Although, again, this person just not caring to at all look into the situation, at least at the time. And then many people realize that Sony, the hypocrisy is insane. This is a capture from the Wayback Machine the same day that the PC changes were announced for Helldivers 2. As you can see on the support page on PlayStation's own website, do I have to sign into PSN to play a PlayStation game on PC? And then they say signing into PSN is optional when playing a PlayStation game on PC. Hours later, they changed it to some PlayStation games may require you to sign in and link to an account for PSN. Very, very naughty thing that Sony did right here. And yes, the uproar was very real. Many people voicing their concerns with giving Sony more data, because Sony, those hackings that have happened in the past, well documented. Sony and security do not go hand in hand at all. Many people, again, going at Helldivers 2, the development team, for the situation, and many more posts just extremely upset, many boycotting the game over this. And then this individual perfectly laid out the problem. PSN is available in 69 countries around the world. Right now there are roughly 190 countries, and then they go on, and they also say that Sony does have the right to ban you for false credentials, although I don't think we've really seen that in the past, but I could be wrong, and I know many players don't want to take that chance. We did see other people again pointing out Sony's poor history with security and data. And then, yeah, in recent weeks and months, when you went to set up your account for Helldivers 2, there was a big old skip button. It did not look mandatory at all. The only thing saying it was mandatory was on the Steam page in small little words, letters. And it did continue on, many even saying that it wasn't in the EULA, and we did see Arrowhead again point fingers at Sony, saying this is a Sony decision, not ours, and they were looking for Sony to come up with a solution as they were ruining Helldivers 2. And we did see finally Sony, of course, they gave in, saying, Helldivers fans, we've heard your feedback on the Helldivers 2 account linking update. The May 6 update, which would have required Steam and a PlayStation Network account linking for new players and for current players beginning May 30th, will not be moving forward. We are still learning what is best for PC players, and your feedback has been invaluable. Has it been? Well, this fast forwards us to this issue. Ghost of Tsushima is going to be launching the Director's Cut on PC, and it has already been delisted in multiple countries. Which countries would you think that would be? Well, it's the countries that PSN is not available in which that is many. Now, the problem is with Ghost of Tsushima is that they put the multiplayer component within it, so they're not separated at all. So you can't even play the single player edition of this game because they tied the multiplayer together, and because the multiplayer, I guess, of all upcoming PlayStation games on PC require that you have an account linked to PSN. This was only a Helldivers 2 situation. They only gave in because of the outrage. And again, there have been other articles saying that, yeah, Ghost of Tsushima delisted from Steam in PSN-less areas despite single player not needing it. So this is like the Baltics, all of Africa, or I think all of Africa except for like South Africa. Egypt is also included, many Middle Eastern countries. This is a major problem. And we did see, again, this is a viral post, 66,000 likes. The Helldivers 2 community was tricked by Sony. Sony declared having a PSN account would be mandatory to play Helldivers 2. The community revolted and trashed the game's review score to 13% positive. Sony walked it back. Declaring victory, this community undid the massive wave of negative reviews, yet Sony did something sinister in the background. They restricted Helldivers 2 from being purchased in all 177 countries where PSN isn't available. And that's the thing. It's not just Ghost of Tsushima. This game has still not been relisted to those 177 countries, and this does appear to be on Sony's end, as they're continuing this trend with Ghost of Tsushima coming to PC. And then we did have confirmation from Arrowhead saying that, sorry, no, I'm speaking to our partners at PlayStation and Valve and pushing for it to be undone. This is again being the delisting. Getting the account linking took a Herculean effort, but I won't rest in my desire to have it available everywhere. That would be the Arrowhead CEO speaking to the community. And then this is right now all of the countries that Helldivers 2 and soon I guess Ghost of Tsushima, the PC version, will not be available on. And yeah, it is a lot of different countries all around the world. Now, I do want to continue just mentioning that, yeah, SteamDB has confirmed that Helldivers 2 purchase restrictions were updated to also include the Baltics. Furthermore, Ghost of Tsushima now has the same purchase restrictions. And then in further reporting coming from SteamDB, they are saying that Steam is now refunding Ghost of Tsushima for people in affected countries. So those who pre-ordered Ghost of Tsushima will not be able to play it if they are, say, in Egypt or one of the countries that PSN right now is not available in. And just to clarify on the Baltics being added to the restriction list, this has actually been noted by the Arrowhead CEO in a new note, saying that this was actually an error and it was supposed to always be included. And he furthermore said that while it doesn't look positive, it's not an indication of further restrictions. The conversation on region restrictions is still ongoing and is independent of this. I have no further information. We Arrowhead still want the game to be available everywhere. And specifically on Ghost of Tsushima, we have players creating maps showing all of the different countries that the game will not be available in on PC, and then we also have many already getting ready to boycott and review bomb the game when it does release on PC in the coming days. This is a massive issue, and right now the gaming community is revolting, and maybe that revolting again hurts more review scores for Helldivers 2 and other PlayStation experiences that are on Steam, because right now the gaming community, at least on PC, is not happy with Sony, and they're realizing that Sony is not giving in all the way with the changes that they made to Helldivers 2. They only did that because of the outrage. They still definitely want that data, because I mean that is the goal of this PSN linking. They want that data. They want to see who's playing their games. They also probably want to push in notices and stuff about other PlayStation games. There's reasons why they definitely want to make this a mandatory thing in the future for all multiplayer experiences. But in the case of Helldivers 2, this is a game that released months ago, and Sony now adding the restriction, that was ridiculous, and they fortunately did realize it, but it took enormous outrage. And with Ghost of Tsushima, just because this director's cut includes the multiplayer component, I guess it gets Sony's new forced PSN linking requirement, which isn't going anywhere. It does mean, though, so many gamers won't have a chance to play the fantastic single player mode because it's all tied together in that one director's cut edition. This is absolutely ridiculous. Now, last but not least, there has been a lot of questions about what happens with Baldur's Gate post-Larian. And Hasbro, who owns the franchise, they also own Wizards of the Coast, which is the publisher of Baldur's Gate and D&D. They recently gave some words, which is not exactly exciting, about the future of the franchise. As reported by PC Gamer, Hasbro wants to make another Baldur's Gate sequel, but it's early days yet. Within the article, Eugene Evans, Senior Vice President of Digital Strategy and Licensing for Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, said, "We're now talking to lots of partners and being approached by lots of partners who are embracing the challenge of what does the future of the Baldur's Gate franchise look like. So we certainly hope that it's not another 25 years as it was from Baldur's Gate 2 to 3 before we answer that. But we're going to take our time and find the right partner, the right approach, and the right product that could represent the future of Baldur's Gate. We take that very, very seriously, as we do with all of our decisions around our portfolio. We don't rush into decisions as to who to partner with on products or what products we should be considering." And it is worth mentioning that Larian in the past again confirmed that they are done with Baldur's Gate. They are moving on. This is an article published back in March from VGC saying that Larian is moving on from Baldur's Gate to make a new thing. They are at the top of the video game industry. They made a lot of money from Baldur's Gate. They're an independent private company. I don't blame them. They have all the leverage in this situation, and I don't think there really is a benefit to continuing working on a franchise that they don't own. And we did hear another article this time coming from IGN. Wizards of the Coast not to blame for Larian leaving Baldur's Gate 3 and D&D behind. This coming from the CEO at Larian, and of course, they're not to blame. They just realize that right now is their opportunity to go make something of their own, and I don't blame them at all. But ultimately, there's not going to be any excitement for Baldur's Gate 4 because I don't think anybody really expects much from it after, Larian's done with this. And I really don't know if any other development team's going to be able to be as dedicated to what Larian achieved with Baldur's Gate 3. But hey, only time will tell. Right now, I definitely am very nervous and not exactly excited to see a Baldur's Gate 4 from a different development team. Anyway, what do you make of all of the news stories that we discussed today? Let me know down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or if you found any informative value, and consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.